How to fill out the 2022 IRS Form 1040. Taxes can be a daunting task, but don't let the 1040 form intimidate you. Here we will break down the form and provide step-by-step instructions for the most important fields you will need to fill out. By the end of this guide, you'll have a better understanding of the 1040 form and how to complete your tax return. First, let's define what Form 1040 is. Form 1040 is the U.S. Individual Income Tax Return, a federal income tax form used to report income and claim tax deductions or credits to the IRS. It is also used to calculate one's tax refund or bill for the year. You can choose to e-file your tax return online, use tax software, or download Form 1040 directly from the IRS website to complete your return by hand. Before diving into the details of the 1040, let's take a quick overview of what we will be looking at. The form begins by asking for personal information such as your name, address, social security number, tax filing status, and how many tax dependents you have. Next, you will calculate your taxable income by adding up all your income for the year. Taxable income is the amount of income that is subject to income taxes. On page 2 of the 1040 form, you will calculate the taxes you owe, also known as your tax liability. You can subtract any tax credits you may be eligible for, as well as taxes that you have already paid via withholding from your paychecks throughout the year. Finally, you will determine your tax bill or refund. This will tell you whether you have already paid any or all of your tax bill and whether you are eligible for a refund if you have overpaid. The Form 1040 can also help you determine whether tax credits or withholding taxes covered your tax bill. Now, let's take a look at the details of the example tax form to see how it looks. We will step through some of the more common lines for the 1040 to help give you an idea of what information you will need to fill out. This is Form 1040, the U.S. Individual Income Tax Return, for the tax year 2022. This example form has been filled out for John, who is single. He has checked the single box for his filing status and has filled in his name, social security number, and address information. For the presidential election campaign, you have the option to check a box to contribute. However, the form states that this does not affect your tax or refund. There is also a question about digital assets or virtual currency. If you have used virtual currency, be sure to check the instructions for additional information. In this example, John has not used virtual currency and has checked the no box. Next is the section on standard deduction and dependents. A tax dependent is a person who qualifies for a dependency exemption on a taxpayer's federal income tax return. This can reduce the taxpayer's taxable income, lower the tax liability, and claim certain deductions and credit. Tax dependents can be either a qualifying child or qualifying relative who meets certain age, residency, relationship, and support criteria specified by the IRS. No one can claim John as a dependent, and he has no dependents, so all that information is left blank. Be sure to check the appropriate box and fill in the lines that reflects your own situation. Next, John has entered his income information. He is employed and earned $16,150 in W-2 income this year. He obtained that information from his W-2 form, which was provided by his employer. It's worth noting that, if you had multiple sources of income, you might have to report it under different forms and schedules, including the W-2 and 1099, and you might also be required to report estimated taxes paid during the year. John had no other income, so he entered 0. He then added all the amounts above. Next are questions about tax-exempt or taxable interest. Tax-exempt interest refers to interest income that is not subject to federal income tax. This type of interest is typically earned on investments in municipal bonds, which are issued by state and local governments. Taxable interest, on the other hand, refers to interest income that is subject to federal income tax. This type of interest is earned on investments such as savings accounts, CDs, and corporate bonds. John had $10 in taxable interest from his bank, so he entered it here. The next section includes several types of income, including capital gains. A capital gain or loss refers to the difference between the cost of an asset and the amount received from its sale. When an asset is sold for more than its cost, the difference is referred to as a capital gain. Conversely, when an asset is sold for less than its cost, the difference is referred to as a capital loss. There are several types of capital assets, such as stocks, bonds, real estate, and collectibles. John, however, had no capital gains or other sources of income, so he added the lines to calculate his total income. He also had no adjustments, so that amount was also his adjusted gross income. Next is the box for standard deduction or itemized deductions. The standard deduction is a fixed dollar amount that a taxpayer can subtract from their taxable income when they file their taxes. The standard deduction reduces the amount of income that is subject to tax, and thus reduces the taxpayer's tax liability. The standard deduction amount changes each year to keep pace with inflation. The key difference between the standard deduction and itemized deductions is that the standard deduction is a fixed dollar amount, while itemized deductions are based on actual expenses incurred. To claim itemized deductions, one needs to fill out Schedule A of the Form 1040. You can choose either to claim the standard deduction or itemized deductions, whichever results in the lower taxable income. However, in some cases, certain taxpayers are restricted from claiming itemized deductions or are subject to limitations in the amount of deductions they can claim. John has elected to take the standard deduction, which is a specific dollar amount that reduces the amount of income on which he is taxed. He obtained that amount by looking at the left side of the page and entering the amount listed for single. Taxpayers should note that for the 2022 tax year, charitable deductions will no longer be found on the 1040 form. Instead, these deductions must be itemized on Schedule A. John had no qualified business income deductions, so that line was left blank. He then subtracted line 14 from line 11 to get his taxable income, which is $3,210. He is then going to use taxable income to find his tax amount. Using his taxable income amount, he then looked up his taxable income amount in the tax table, which can be found in the 1040 instructions. He made $3,210, which is at least $3,200, but less than $3,250. As a single filer, his tax amount according to the table is $323. This brings us to page 2 of the 1040 form. On line 16, John entered the tax amount from the tax table and, since he had nothing on Schedule 2 or Schedule 3, and does not have any tax credits, he entered it again on line 18 and line 22. On this page there are lines for entering credits, which are amounts that can be subtracted from the amount of tax an individual owes. An example of credits that can be claimed on the 1040 form include the child tax credit. To claim a credit on the 1040 form, an individual must meet certain qualifications and provide the necessary documentation. The credits are then entered in the appropriate line on the 1040 form, and the amount of the credit is subtracted from the total tax owed. Since he did not have any credits or other taxes, he again entered this amount as his total tax. The next section is on federal income tax withheld. Federal income tax withheld is the amount of money that an individual's employer has taken out of their paychecks throughout the year to go towards their federal income tax liability. The amount of federal income tax withheld should match the total amount listed on your W-2 forms from your employers. If you have had multiple employers throughout the year, you will receive a W-2 from each employer, and the total federal income tax withheld should be reported on the 1040 form. To find the taxes paid on a W-2 form, look for the section labeled Federal Income Tax or something similar, which reports the amount of federal income tax that was withheld from your paycheck. The section you are looking for can be in different location, depending on the format of the W-2, but generally it should be very clear. It's worth noting that the W-2 form will also report state and local taxes withheld, along with other deductions and contributions, such as Social Security and Medicare. These lines are found on the W-2 as well, so make sure you look carefully and add all the withholding numbers to have the complete picture of the taxes paid during the year. John looked at how much he already paid in taxes, which was deducted from his paycheck. He obtained that information from his W-2 form and entered it here. John did not have any other credits, he entered it again here. Adding up the amounts listed, he entered his total payments, the sum of all the payments that he made to the IRS during the year. Next are the refund and amount you owe sections. The refund refers to the amount of money that you will receive back from the IRS if you have paid more in taxes than you owe. This amount is calculated by subtracting the total payments from your tax liability. The amount you owe refers to the difference between your tax liability and the total payments if you didn't pay enough in taxes during the year. If this number is positive, it means you will have to pay the IRS the remaining amount. Since John paid more in taxes than his tax amount, he is due a refund. By subtracting the amount paid from the amount owed, he obtained the overpaid amount. If you have overpaid, you may then also choose the amount you want refunded to you. John entered the same amount as the amount he overpaid, since he wants to be refunded for the full amount. To receive your refund, it is recommended to enter your account information to receive direct deposit of your refund to reduce the chance of errors. When filling out the 1040, be sure to double-check all your information and claim any applicable deductions or credits. Also, some sections of the form may not apply to you and may be left blank. Once all the information is correct, he will sign and date the return and fill out any remaining information before submitting it to the IRS before the deadline. This was just an example to help you better understand the 1040 form. Since the example was with a person who was single, with no dependents, and only had W-2 income, it was less complicated. More complicated tax situations may require the use of tax preparation software or hiring a tax professional. Since your tax situation is likely different, be sure to take a look at the 1040 instructions and consult with a tax professional if you are unsure about any part of the form or if you need help. Please like and follow us if you wish to receive updates, and check out some of our other tax and related videos for more tax and personal finance information.